Welcome back, friends. First of all, let me wish you all a very happy Gurpurab, not only to my Sikh friends but also to a wide audience. The ideals and the teachings of Guru Nanak stand out very much for all of us to learn how a life is to be led, how people have to move forward in their regular lives, how businesses need to be conducted, how you should mold your personality in tune with what nature desires, with what the universe desires, with what God desires. The ideals and the teachings of Guru Nanak really are something that you should all note for. And to all my friends, yes, wishing you once again a very happy Gurpurab today. India's GDP numbers just out recently, and the data for the second quarter of 2020-21 conveys a rather mixed picture. Technically, India is now in a recession because if you have 2 quarters of declining GDP, then technically you are supposed to be in a recession. Now, GDP shrank 7.5% to 33.14 lakh crores. Now, this is the first recession, or I would say 2 successive quarters of contraction in GDP since quarterly data became available. But the decline is lower than the 9.8% as forecast by the Reserve Bank of India in its monetary policy last month. To that extent, the silver lining is that the recovery from the first quarter's contraction of 23.9% is a bit better than expected. Okay. Granular data, however, shows that the economy remains in rather fragile shape. This really calls for smart intervention by the center, and they have always been very smart and definitely at the top of the things. The strength of private consumption is an important economic indicator, as you all know. It is the largest component of GDP, and it fell in the second quarter by 11.3% to rupees 17.96 lakh crores. Now, this is telling of what has happened in the purchasing power of consumers. There is little doubt that the pandemic induced economic collapse, coming of course on the heels of 2 successive years of an economic slowdown witnessed in the Indian economy, has resulted in some sort of a damage and many eyebrows raised. It's only agriculture which has largely escaped the damage, which means that it's imperative that the government address anxiety over agricultural reforms before it hurts that sector as well. Since the lockdown was imposed in the last week of March, the government has got cracking on pending reforms in factor markets such as labor, and has designed packages to encourage manufacturing competitiveness, and they have really gone very many steps forward. Let's commend them on this. These reforms are largely aimed at, of course, removing bottlenecks which restrain the supply side of the economy. The implicit assumption is, of course, that the reforms will catalyze private investment and set off a virtuous cycle. But there is a catch here. A significant part of the private investment will, of course, as you all know, be influenced by the strength of the domestic demand. Hence, the Atmanirbhar Bharat idea that was spelled out by our very good, capable Prime Minister NARENDRAMODI bhai included domestic demand as one of its pillars. Commendable job done by Modi, and I really commend him. He's handled the COVID crisis really very well. It's very tough for anyone. I mean, you just can't say GDP is falling, but if you look at the background, it's been a very difficult situation. The immediate task is, of course, for the government to address weak domestic demand. Now, many of the supply side measures will, of course, fulfill their potential only if there are clear signs of a revival in domestic demand, and you need to understand that even if the government does not want to expand its borrowing program in the residual 4 months of the financial year to meet the Fiscal Responsibilities Act, yet There are other ways to revive the purchasing power. For example, hastening the execution of existing infrastructure projects needs top priority, as this will address the current economic challenges. So here we stand at a government which is really racing hard against time to fight the falling GDP, and India has really been a great pillar of economic growth in the world and has to reinstate itself back in that position which it has been for quite some time. It's with so much of COVID related diseases, people getting impacted, so many COVID deaths, lockdown conditions to prevent more people from getting infected. The government has done a great job, and now it has got the immunization program and many things up its sleeve as well. So they can combine that by having workers to participate in the immunization program, not only health workers, but they can have non-health workers also be a part of this entire process to vaccinate the nation, to get it back on the path of progress and economic growth. This all requires great amount of skill, and the government definitely is in good possession of. You have the bright minds, bright Prime Minister and the bright team that definitely can deliver the goods. They should focus on getting the people back to normal. Returning back to normal should be the key now for this government, and I'm sure they are looking hard at this direction. Prime Minister toured so many vaccination centers, manufacturing facilities, and firsthand has had a look which shows that the priority of the government will, in addition to addressing the supply side bottlenecks, is also going to shift towards getting the health of the economy back in physical and other ways as well. So we have people getting immunized, and the government is now ready to take steps in that direction as well. The important vaccine candidates, they are being encouraged by the government. That also is going to help. All this is going to augur well for the health of the economy. Yet the demand side, there are some deficiencies in that direction. Fiscal incentives, I think, can easily address giving tax benefits for people investing in housing. For example, in infrastructure, you increase the limits that are available under ATC from 1.5 lakhs, you can double it. These sorts of fiscal incentives will go a long way in getting back India on the path of economic growth and glory that it has been a part of in the past as well. And I'm quite sure that India will be back on its normal path very soon in 2021. Happy investing. Take care. Bye-bye.